Good ball played in for Tony Morley. Oh, it must be! And it is! Peter Will!
All right. Hello, and welcome to Gather Round Again, an Aston Villa podcast brought to you by the good people over here, me and Andy at underagaslitlamp.com. We are coming to you live after a magnificent, wondrous, wonderful, beautiful, incredible late win in the Europa Conference League over Munster. Andy, how are you doing this evening?
Yeah, magnificent. I mean, what a way to get that win. It wouldn't have been the same if we'd have scored that in the first 10 minutes. Wouldn't have been the same, would it?
Wouldn't have been the same. So, Andy, let's talk. We talked the other day about the magic of Aston Villa. 6-1. We've romped to victory. Since then, prior to the starting lineups going live, we've had some more terrible news. Rumours of Jacob Ramsey going down with a metatarsal, Diaby out for an unspecified period of time, and also now Kamara injured. What is going on at Aston Villa, Andy, and why can't we keep players fit?
I think it's these things are sent to test you, aren't they? And it just feels like it is every week now. We're getting these injuries, these sort of stories breaking of injuries. When I heard about Jacob Ramsey, I mean, I was convinced he was going to be in the England squad after his goal, and Eze from Palace being injured, and then the next thing you hear is that he's out, he's injured. Yeah, I mean, I just don't know. And the problem now is as well, when these players get injured, the club, ever since Grealish, remember the Grealish injury that went on and on and on. You never really know, how long they're likely to be out. So it's all speculation, isn't it? But it's, I mean, all three of those is bad news, and particularly Diaby because he's been sensational in the early part of the season.
So what is the deal? Why? I mean, this is getting ridiculous, Andy. We've already lost Diogo Carlos for a portion of the season. He was back tonight. Tyrone Mings is gone down. Emi Buendia has gone down. We haven't seen hide nor hair of Moreno so far this season. Ramsey's been back for a cup of coffee and that has now disappeared again. Is there something in the water at Bodymoor Heath? Should we be looking at the sports science? What is your impression of what's going on?
Well, I mean, it's a bit above my head, really. I mean, it always feels when you get a spate of injuries, the first thing you think is, well, what are they doing in training? Is it a bit too intensive? Are the certain drills or certain things they're doing which is causing this problem? But they're all different injuries, aren't they? I suppose they're all different types of injury, and of course, Kamara and Diaby were hurt in the game, weren't they? So, I don't think so. I think it is just the way and the modern game, isn't it? They're playing so much football. Early on in the season, lots of games, midweek, weekend. And these guys, and they are playing all the games. It's not like that Diaby, Kamara, etc. are being rested, are they?
Dropping like flies they are, Andy. But we had, let's talk through the starting lineup. Martinez in goal. Let's start with that. I will share that I was, no offense, I was thrilled not to see Robin Olsen, Andy, I have to tell you. I don't think he is either. I don't think he wants to do it. I think he's having a. I don't think he is. Yeah, I don't think he is either. We may have lost your audio there for a second, Andy, because I had you on the wrong screen. But again, Martinez was in. Olsen was out. I was pleased with that. Check out our latest episode on Gather Round the Lamp, the Aston Villa podcast, brought to you by underagaslitlamp.com. Available on all your streaming platforms for the Olsen chat. Martinez was back. Konsa, we are working Konsa like a government mule, Andy. He cannot catch a break. He steps in and right back. I mean, Gareth Southgate, thankfully, is going to give him 2 weeks off now. But are you worried about Konsa, the wear and tear on Konsa?
I don't know, really. Konsa seems incredibly durable, doesn't he? And I know it's bad to say that, and I am touching wood. But I think he's one of those players. People refer to him as the Rolls Royce, and how often do you see a Rolls Royce parked on the hard shoulder with an AA van behind it? It's that he is very durable, and I think the way he plays, he's just so in control, isn't he, of what he's doing on the field. And I think he's one of those that can just play a lot of games, and he's probably better off at playing a lot of games as well because he gets in a nice rhythm. So yeah, I mean, at some point he's going to need a break, isn't he? But whenever Diego Carlos comes into the defence, it feels like Konsa has to go and play it right back.
Yeah, and Diego Carlos did return. Nice to see him back. Your old friend Daddy Longley returned for his second bite of the cherry. Yeah. Luca Dean also there in the back four. This is the first time we've ever seen this back four, and it seems like that's not the first time we've said that this season. Difficult for the lads to have any kind of continuity when the back four's changing from week to week, I would guess, Andy.
It is, although I think it's good because over time they're all getting used to playing with each other in the different combinations. I mean, Longley and Carlos weren't overly tested today, but I thought they looked very comfortable. And obviously both very good on the ball, very good at how we want to play and that sort of thing. And it meant that obviously Paris, had midweek off, so that's great. But yeah, I mean, it is strange because we're used to having that same back four, but I think what we're seeing is the same back four on the weekend, and then the changes happen midweek, don't they?
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic, and I don't remember us being in a situation where we chopped and changed the back four or back five so much, but needs must a little bit. John McGinn, again, another one that we might be a little bit concerned about burnout. He won't be getting 2 weeks off like Ezri Konsa because obviously he is an integral part of what Scotland are doing on international duty. And we saw the return of Gingerbread Leon on the right wing, and also for the first time, which we're going to talk about in some detail later on in the show, the two-man midfield of the Belgian chocolates, Dendoncker and Tielemans.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And we'll get to them in a minute.
It was good fun.
And John Duran taking his place up front with Zaniolo drifting about the place. I couldn't quite work out. It seemed like Bailey was on the wing to me and Zaniolo was in the number 10 position. Was that your reading also?
Yeah, I mean, Bailey switched wings, didn't he, at half time? But that was pretty much it. Zaniolo had a little bit of a free roll, didn't he? He was popping up kind of in various different positions in that front area. So yeah, interesting.
So let's talk about the first half. Probably the highlight of the first half was that spectacular Zaniolo effort. But before that, Aston Villa lucky not to be 1-0 down. Martinez with a spectacular save. It looked to me like it might have been offside, but the flag didn't go up and it didn't go to VAR. But Martinez was there all the same.
Yeah, I mean, who knows what offside is anymore after last weekend as well. But yeah, I mean, absolutely, you can't rely on that, can you? So, I mean, look, how many times do we say it about Emi Martinez making these saves? Absolute quality, and it's getting to the stage now where you almost expect him to save it. Even when a player is right in front of the goal, it's almost harder to miss. he's there, isn't he, making that strong save, and absolutely superb. I mean, he's just like a wall, isn't he?
He is like a wall, and so were the Monstar crew to their effort, to their credit, I guess. Like, we did not have, other than that Zaniolo effort, off the top of my head, Andy, not a great deal happening in terms of us peppering the goal in that first half. What did you make of it?
No, the first half was quite pedestrian, but I mean, it's nothing we haven't seen before at times at home, particularly last season. It's that kind of, we obviously controlled the ball, we controlled the tempo to a large extent, and it was very slow pace. But I think this is part of what the game plan is. You are, when it is slow like that, you are trying to draw the opposition out to some degree. But obviously, if the opposition are quite happy to sit in, it becomes very difficult, and it looks very slow and pedestrian. But it's not always easy to break those lines, is it? When a team is in a mid block or a low block like that, it's very, very difficult.
Which brings us to, I guess, a really interesting point in that a player that we signed ostensibly to take care of a low block, someone who has apparently a fantastic long shot, someone who has apparently fantastic short and long range passing, someone who can pick the lock with a little a paper clip, if you will, or a hairpin in times of need. Yuri Tillemans in there in central midfield with his buddy Leandro Dendoncker. Yuri, in the last international break, Andy, had a lot to say for himself. We did address that, I think, on this show a little bit before. But since he piped up and showed his ass a little bit in regards to moaning about his lack of playing time, he's been afforded several opportunities. One against Legia Warsaw in the 3-2 defeat away from home. One in the Everton game where he gave away the winning goal to Calvert-Lewin with a lovely through ball, which left Ezri Konsa in no man's land. And then again today, he's been on the pitch for the whole 90 minutes as far as I could tell. I may have lost him at some point. And despite a couple of positive pre-season performances, the Fulham game in particular, off the top of my head, Yuri Tillemans, it's fair to say, has had a sluggish start to his Aston Villa career, Andy.
Yeah, I don't know, watching him tonight, it's very frustrating, isn't it? It's very frustrating. It feels like he's not up with the pace, and when you're used to watching the way Camara and Douglas Luiz operate in midfield, it just feels, like he's taking one touch too many. I was trying to work out during the game, because I was getting frustrated with him, and he was misplacing passes, which is not something I expect of Tielemans, knowing what I know about him and having watched him playing for Leicester over the year. It's not something I expect from him. But I was trying to work out whether he's misplacing passes because, they're bad passes, or whether he's trying those killer passes, if you like, really threading it through, really kind of, breaking the lines with a kind of clinical slide rule ball, or that sort of thing that if it goes through, it would open the defence up. But I think it's a bit of both. I think at times that's the case, but then there were occasions where he was misplacing simple balls, nothing that was too outrageous, just a 10, 15 yard pass that you'd expect any of the players to be able to make, really. So, yeah, I thought he grew into the game, though. I thought when Douglas Luiz came on, he found a bit more space and he looked a bit more positive about things. But we've talked about this before, and I wanted to ask you, do you think he just playing in that double pivot, in that two-man midfield, just doesn't suit him?
I don't think it suits him, but I think with respect to the opposition today, in a game like today where we're dominating the ball, and again we're up against a team who are sitting in a low block, that is supposed to be meat and drink to him. He didn't have a lot of running to do, not a lot of tackles to fly into. Yes, they had a couple of forays into our half with the aforementioned Martinez save, and there was a couple of close calls in the second half when we were pushing on. But it wasn't like this was a backs to the wall. We needed him to get his shorts dirty, to paraphrase John Gregory about Gareth Barry all those years ago. It was really, I thought, a match made for him. And while he did better in the second half, I'll go with you there. This is not the creme de la creme level of player I thought that we were getting. And it might be an adaptation period, but one of the things that you're kind of banking on when you bring in a proven international with 200 Premier League games under his belt and an FA Cup final winning goal is and who doesn't even need to move house. I mean, he's still in the Midlands, for goodness sake. Kids didn't need to move school. You're kind of banking on that. And he's lining up against his Belgian buddy today as well. They're next door to each other, so they've been playing together for years. They were together they've played together at club level and obviously international level before Aston Villa. You're thinking, we've rolled out the red carpet for you here, Yuri, and you're just not quite there yet. And again, it's early days. It's October of his first season. He only started in August. There is time, but the start has been less than auspicious, I would say, from Tielemans. But there was some changes. What do you make of that acrobatic effort from Zaniolo in the first half, just before we move on to the second half, Andy?
It was superb. I thought it had gone in.
He's box office.
I was watching it on
if nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing, and he would probably. I mean, he looked quite frustrated. It looked like things weren't really coming off for him a little bit tonight. But he just looks like he's so entertaining to watch, and he looks like he's one of those players you just the way he moves, the way he uses the ball, the way he controls the ball, that sort of thing. I think he's just the sort of player you want to watch, and you can almost put up with him things not going quite right for him, because I just think he's the potential he has to be incredibly dangerous in our team is phenomenal. I just think he's something about him. There's something about him, isn't there? There's he's a bit like a Greek god, isn't he? Or a Roman emperor maybe is more appropriate.
If nothing else, he looks and carries himself like a star. If nothing else.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I was watching and obviously it's a different level, but I was watching the David Beckham documentary, and there was always that thing about Beckham, wasn't there? It's that kind of larger than life character on the field, someone that you just can't. You've got to watch him. Grealish was the same, that kind of
the swagger.
Yeah, you can't take your eyes off him. You just want to watch him play. And Zaniolo is along those sort of lines. Obviously, he's, you want to see a few more goals and assists from him.
I have a David Beckham.
But I want to watch him.
I want to watch him too. I have a David Beckham anecdote, actually. And this, if anyone was there as well in the Trinity Road stand as I was, and I think this was after the 98 World Cup, and I don't know if this was mentioned on the show, and I haven't seen the show yet, but I will watch it in the next few weeks. He was taking a throw-in, was David Beckham, in front of the Trinity Road stand. I was sat there with my dad and my uncle, as we were every 2 weeks back in those days. And Beckham was there lining up, and he was getting some dog's abuse. And Beckham actually lifted his right short leg all the way up to reveal his buttock as a way to tell us to get lost, I think, politely. Which was so. If anyone else was there on that day, please throw us a comment and make sure that this isn't just a fever dream of mine. But anyway, back to Zaniolo. It was an acrobatic effort, but he was, again, another one, Andy. We're seeing more flashes from. I'm certainly more excited from Zaniolo than I have been from Yuri Tielemans. We're seeing some flashes from him. But he's probably yet still, even though we've seen moments of brilliance, probably still yet to, and I include today, he's still yet to put it all together, I would say, Andy, into a 90-minute kind of coherent performance so far, Zaniolo.
Yeah.
But again, still early.
He is, but I think he's working really hard.
He is, yeah.
That's another thing. That's another thing you could say for him. Along those lines, talking about Beckham and Grealish and people like he works incredibly hard. He's not waiting for it to happen. He's trying to make it happen, and that's great as well. That's great.
Could be trying too hard, perhaps.
Yeah, possibly, but I think it will pay off. It will happen.
Well,
it will happen for him. He's going to score a great goal soon.
Well, yeah, I think he's going to score several. He's going to score several great goals. So let's get to the halftime whistle blows. Some less than enthusiastic things going on in the stadium and also on Villa social media. It's 0-0. We have the 15-minute break, the cup of teas and the oranges and the Jaffa cakes and whatever else the lads are having. And then Unai Emery breaks out the substitutions. We see Big Daddy Donk make way for our Brazilian superstar Douglas Luiz. Matty Cash comes in to make way for, and Luca Dean makes way for him. And we see John Duran subbed, hooked again at halftime for the second week in a row after being taken off also in the Everton game at halftime. And our hat-trick hero from the weekend, Ollie Watkins, was on, Andy. What did you make of these substitutions?
It was really interesting. I think it showed the intent. Obviously, Emery absolutely desperate to win this game. Probably would have liked it tied up earlier, obviously, than it was. But yeah, I mean, it felt like, I think the Luca Dean one was probably prearranged. I think that was probably going to happen anyway, and to give sort of both himself and Matty Cash, half a game each. I'm not sure about. I mean, I was a little bit disappointed Duran went off because I thought he looked really quite dangerous. I thought he was leading the line quite well. But yeah, I mean, obviously we needed something in midfield, didn't we? So it's no surprise that Douglas Luiz came on. I was just a little bit surprised it was so early, really. But it just showed the intent of Emery and wanting to get the game wrapped up, really.
Yeah, he is an expert in these things. For he's got a really fine balancing act. Obviously, we're going gangbusters in the league, and he's also trying very hard to balance out and make sure that he limits players' minutes where possible. And as you say, Andy, perhaps there was some pre-planned stuff with Cash and Dean. Give them 45 minutes each, keep them fresh for the weekend. Dean won't be going on international duty. Matty Cash, I assume, will be for Poland. And there is a little bit of a dance to be done then, particularly when we're down so many players, as we talked about already in the show. So those changes were rung. And then Villa, I think, to be fair, were brighter after the break, and Monster retreated kind of deeper and deeper and deeper into their own penalty area. And we had on 55 minutes the changes rang true, and we had a penalty given, which was quickly overturned by VAR. Right decision there, Andy?
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. The guys took one on the nose there, hasn't he? And if that had been given, I mean, well, it was given initially, but you see this? That's the sort of thing VAR's there for, isn't it? I mean, that would have been a travesty.
VAR was working. You see, people say football fans are fickle. Not us Aston Villa lot. Look at us, honest as the day is long. We hold our, even though we could have really done with a penalty to break the deadlock at that point in time, we hold our hands up and say, no penalty. But to me, Andy, in terms of the rhythm of the second half, unusual for Unai Emery's side, it was a bit of a throwback to the Gerrard days, and I found myself confused at the amount of crosses that seems to be flying into the box, particularly as we had withdrawn John Duran, who would be the person who you would think you would want on the end of those crosses. What was that all about?
I think though there was more of an intention, wasn't there? There was a more intention to get towards the byline more, certainly with Cash. You could see occasionally John McGinn would pick it up sort of out wide on the left, outside the penalty area, and he'd look like he was looking to sort of swing one in. as we've seen him do so many times in similar positions over the years, to no avail a lot of the time. But I thought they were trying to make better angles. They were putting a lot of crosses in, but I think that was part of the game plan. And I think John McGinn actually alluded to it after the game, that this was something where, having been in this position a lot of times, people end up shooting from all sorts of angles, desperate to get the goal.
Which happened also.
We did see, we did see Zaniolo,
shots,
and
Tielemans is taking shots. I mean, there was a lot of that happening too.
Yeah. But I think they were trying, particularly with Cash on the right-hand side, and in fairness, Bailey on the other side. I was just going to say something about Leon Bailey, that
Go on.
It always seems like in his head he's Maradona, isn't he? He thinks but his feet just can't do. He's still very, very good. Don't get me wrong. I'm not. Not everyone could be Maradona, but you can tell what the picture in his head
is a little bit different to the reality. Well, listen, isn't it all? When I look in the mirror, I see Tyrone Mings staring back at me running reality. Not so much, particularly as I was remembering last night. So little sidebar here. Last night I went to see the Philadelphia Union beat Atlanta 3-0, and great player there on hand, Almeida, Thiago Almeida, Argentinian international. He would be a very good signing for any Premier League side. But anyway, most importantly, Brad Guzan was there, and Brad Guzan had conceded 3 goals by half time, and it gave me some real bad PTSD from our relegation season. And it was just really interesting to see the old guard of Aston Villa. I think Brad Guzan may have been playing in the last time we played a European fixture at Villa Park. So it's funny how things come full circle. But back to your point about Bailey thinking he's Maradona. Speaking of players who might think that they are Diego Maradona, and sometimes I would guess looks a bit more like Diego Maradona than Leon Bailey. Around the 82-minute mark, we saw a really bold attacking change from Unai Emery, as Diego Carlos was withdrawn for everyone's favourite dancing wizard, Andy, Bertrand Traore, and this substitution would prove to be critical in the winning goal.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, he's done it again, hasn't he, Bertie? And it looked for a long time like he wasn't going to make any headway whatsoever. He was doing his usual thing. He will sort of face up the fullback, won't he? And he'll have a go. And he was linking up fairly well, but there were times where obviously just wasn't going right. I think he tried a similar pass a few minutes before, and it was just cut out by the defender, which of course happens, doesn't it? But he's made his impact in the end, hasn't he? And he's just one of those players. He's always worth a shout late on, because he's a wild card.
He is just highly effective though, and he will put in a disaster class as much as he'll put in a brilliance. But his numbers for Villa, and I've maintained this. I did a whole interlude on the abuse that Traore got. He produces for Aston Villa in moments that we need him. The goal last season, obviously, the winner away at Leicester, follows it up with a goal, I want to say, against Nottingham Forest, responsible for 6 points right there, and then he kind of disappears, not to be seen again for the rest of the season. I think he had a bad first half at Wolves, and that was the end of him.
That was it
for the rest of the season. And then tonight, we haven't really seen hide nor hair of the guy. He comes on, he's doing his little dances, and there he is, kind of dancing around. He's got 2 defenders around him, and he's waiting for Matty Cash to make the run. And he picks out a beautiful ball for Matty Cash. And Matty Cash, again, a bit like his assist in the Brighton game for the Ollie Watkins opener, Matty Cash puts in a delicious ball to perhaps the smallest man on the pitch, not named Leon Bailey. And John McGinn nods in a glancing header for Aston Villa. And Villa Park, to quote James, goes absolutely bonkers. The roof nearly came off.
Yeah, well, like I say, our friend James was there. He made that point, didn't he, to us, that his ears were still ringing after that. So, I mean, fantastic. Well, I mean, great move as well. And I think that late on in the game, to have that calmness, I think all 3 players, involved in that move showed incredible composure to put that together. Not least Matty Cash, because we've seen crosses from that position fly over everyone's head and out for a throwing, haven't we? From Matty Cash,
we certainly have. Yeah,
he picked out McGinn superbly. Not dissimilar to Bailey against Everton earlier in the season. Did a similar thing, and McGinn was in on the spot then as well. But yeah, and lovely header. He said after the game that the one he missed against England for Scotland has been haunting him. So he wanted to make sure the next header he got went in net. So and what a time! I mean, 94 minutes. Absolutely perfect, isn't it? And that's the way to win a game, isn't it? That's the perfect way to win a game. And all the trials and tribulations before that have been forgotten.
Yeah, and that's it. The post-match analysis, the post-match podcasts and live streams like this one, the framework and the narrative and the feeling and the vibes, if you will, are now entirely different than when, if it had been a 0-0 draw. And now, crucially, we find ourselves with our first win in the Europa Conference League this season. And then when we look at the group table for Group E, it is even Stevens across the board. It is 3 points for Mostar, 3 points for Alkmaar, who beat Legia Warsaw today, 3 points for Legia Warsaw, who obviously beat us last time out, and 3 points for the mighty Aston Villa. We are, unfortunately, I believe, a bottom of the table for goals conceded, but 3 points apiece and all to play for. If we'd got a draw today, that would have looked very, very different, but we didn't. We've got the win. We've got the 3 points. And I suppose from a narrative standpoint, Andy, for us to win a European... Yes, I know this is not... we didn't just beat PSG as Newcastle did, but we can only beat what's in front of us. To beat this team, Zrinjski, with quite a makeshift 11... And to get 3 points on the board, that's the main thing, isn't it? To try and get through this group and into the later stages, Andy. And most importantly, almost buy ourselves some time for some of these squad players to come back in so we can have a better fist of it.
Well, this is it. And, it's a bit like it's the same principle as in a World Cup or a European Championships. The group phase, you just got to get through. No one wants to be hitting top form in the group phase because... it's just not worth it. When you get to quarterfinals and semi-finals, that's when you want to be pulling out the big performances because that's when it really matters and you have to win. But I mean, don't get me wrong, this was an absolutely a must-win game. It wasn't a bad performance by any means. I thought certainly second half they obviously controlled the game and it could, on another day it's 4 or 5-0, isn't it? But their goalkeepers had a good game, and obviously they've defended really, really strongly as well. They'll feel unlucky, won't they?
Yeah, you could see.
After
you felt, if I wasn't, such an Aston Villa stalwart, I would feel a little bit bad for them. They looked gutted at the end. Their players, almost in tears, some of them. So. Disappointment for them. They fought hard, they worked hard, and they gave as best an account of themselves as they could. But I mean, ultimately, if you're looking at the match stats, 27 shots for Aston Villa to their 3. We had 9 shots on target to their 1. 75% of possession for us, 25 for them. We hit 630 passes today. So all in all, you have to say it was a deserved win. So hard luck on Mostar. We'll see you again very, very soon. But for now, it's an Aston Villa victory. It's an Aston Villa win. We are 3 points on the board, Andy, and we move on to the local derby against the Dingles on Sunday, of course, not Saturday. Don't be silly. We play on Sunday now, and we're gonna have a good go at them. Now, if you want to hear the match preview for the Wolves game, please check out the main show, which is available on your typical podcast feeds. It is starring us two, me and Andy, joined forces to talk all about that Brighton game. So please check out the Gather Around the Lamp podcast. Please check out the website, underagaslitlamp.com. I have been Craig Storrod. Thank you for watching. Andy, any final words on Villa's first win in Europe in years and years and years?
It's great, isn't it? It's great to get on the board, and I think we will kick on from here. I think we really will, and we should qualify now through the group. But yeah, just good to get on the board, and great way to do it. The captain scores a winner in in injury time. Fantastic.
Could have said it any better myself. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you for checking us out. We have been Gather Round Again, an Aston Villa podcast brought to you in association with underagaslitlamp.com. We will see you again very, very soon. And of course, thank you, John McGinn, Captain Marvel, Aston Villa 1, Zrinjski Mostar 0. 3 points on the board. Let's go Villa, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for tuning in to Gather Round Again, an Aston Villa podcast. Please like down below and subscribe. Up the Villa.
Daly and Atkinson on one of those great runs. What a run by Daly and Atkinson. Atkinson again.
And it's Dwight York.